All right, if you're an AI engineer who's actually in the trenches building with agents, this is for you. We're going to cut right through the hype and get down to the brass tacks, the essential frameworks, the patterns you'll actually use, and the practices you need to build systems that are genuinely autonomous. So here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the big picture, the why behind this whole agentic shift. Then we'll get into the weeds on the how, looking at the three big frameworks and the core patterns that make them tick. And finally, we'll wrap up with a practical checklist to get your amazing prototype ready for the real world.
So, let's start with a basic question. Why is everyone talking about agent frameworks all of a sudden? Well, it's because we're in the middle of a massive paradigm shift. We're moving beyond just building clever tools. We're starting to architect entire teams.
Here's the best way to think about it. A calculator, that's a reactive tool. It's powerful, but it just sits there waiting for you to punch in the exact numbers and operations. An agentic system, on the other hand, is like a research assistant. You don't give it step-by-step instructions. You give it a high-level goal, like find the latest breakthroughs in this field, and it figures out the steps, uses its tools, and gets the job done. That's the leap we're making. Okay, so if we're building teams, we obviously need some blueprints, right? That's exactly what these frameworks are. We're going to look at the three big open source players right now, and, more importantly, the totally different design philosophies they're built on.
And this is absolutely crucial. Don't think of these as just different libraries that do the same thing. They represent fundamentally different ways to think about agent collaboration. AutoGen treats it like a managed conversation. CrewAI thinks about it like building a company org chart. And LangGraph approaches it like you're designing an intelligent, stateful flowchart. First up, we've got AutoGen. Its entire world revolves around conversation. The core idea here is that you can solve complex problems by getting a bunch of specialized agents to literally talk it out, with a manager making sure the conversation stays on track.
So what's going on under the hood? You've got your basic building block, the conversable agent. Then you have this great pairing, the assistant agent, who is the thinker, planning and writing code, and the user proxy agent, who is the doer, actually executing it. And holding it all together is the group chat manager, who's basically the meeting moderator deciding who gets to speak next.
All right, now let's talk about CrewAI, which completely switches up the metaphor. We're moving out of the chat room and into the boardroom. With CrewAI, you're not just creating an agent, you are literally hiring it. You give it a role, a specific goal, and even a backstory to ground its expertise.
This whole structure is designed to create a really clear, predictable, almost assembly line-like workflow. The crew is what pulls it all together. It organizes your specialized agents and assigns them tasks. And the key part is the context, which is how the finished work from one agent gets passed down the line to the next. And then there's LangGraph. And honestly, if you're a control freak who wants to define every single step of the process, this one's for you. It forces you to think about your agent system as a stateful graph, basically a superpowered flowchart where you explicitly design every step, every connection, and every single decision point.
But the real magic of LangGraph, the thing that makes it so powerful, is its ability to build loops. Because you have this explicit state, this shared memory that travels through the graph, and conditional routing, you can make decisions. You can say, if this condition is met, go back to this node. And that's huge for building systems that can iterate and refine their work.
Okay, so now that we've got the frameworks down, let's talk about the actual patterns. These are the fundamental building blocks you're going to be using over and over again, no matter which framework you end up choosing. Let's start with the absolute classic, the one everyone builds first, the sequential pattern, or prompt chaining. It's just a simple assembly line. The output of Agent A becomes the input for Agent B. It's perfect for any task you can break down into a series of dependent steps. And here's a textbook example you've probably seen a million times. You feed in a job description. The first agent's only job is to read it and pull out the required skills. That list of skills is then passed directly to the second agent, whose only job is to write a cover letter based on those skills. Simple, linear, and super effective.
Okay, next up is the routing pattern. Think of this as your intelligence switchboard or a traffic cop. You have a single agent right at the front, and its one and only job is to look at the user's request and figure out what they're trying to do.
So if the user types TLDR, the router knows, aha, this needs to go to the summarization agent. If they type say this in German, it sends the task to the translation agent. It's all about making sure the right specialist is working on the right job. So what do you do when things are too slow and the tasks don't actually depend on each other? Well, that's where parallelization comes in.
It's a dead simple way to get a massive speed boost. Instead of asking one agent to translate good morning into French, then Spanish, then Japanese, which would happen one after the other, you just spin up 3 different agents to do it all at the same time. Then a final aggregator just grabs all the results and puts them together. Easy win.
All right, we've covered the basics. Now, let's level up and get into the really fun stuff. These next 2 advanced patterns are what you need to build systems that can handle genuine ambiguity and, get this, actually improve their own work.
So first, the Orchestrator pattern. This is your go-to when you can't possibly know all the steps of a workflow ahead of time. You have a central planner agent that takes a complex goal, analyzes it, and dynamically creates a multi-step plan on the fly.
The catering kitchen is the perfect analogy here. The head chef is your orchestrator. They get a huge, complex event order. They can't just cook it all at once. They have to break it down into appetizers, main courses, desserts, and then assign each of those subtasks to their specialized line cooks, the worker agents.
But how do you build systems that can actually fix their own mistakes? That's the holy grail, right? Well, the reflection pattern is how you do it. It's a beautifully simple but incredibly powerful loop of generation and critique.
You have one agent, the generator, whose job is to create something, a piece of code, a marketing plan, whatever. Then a second agent, the evaluator, comes in and critiques it based on a set of rules. Think of it like a bold strategist proposing a wild plan and a conservative risk expert poking holes in it. This cycle continues, back and forth, until the output is good enough to pass the critique.
Okay, let's bring this all home. We've talked theory and patterns, now let's talk about production. This is a rapid-fire checklist of the stuff you absolutely need to think about to take your system from a cool Jupyter notebook to something that's actually robust and reliable. First, agents and security. Honestly, this stuff is non-negotiable. It really all boils down to control and safety. Be incredibly specific in your system messages. Set hard limits like max consecutive auto-reply so you don't get stuck in an infinite expensive loop. And for anything high stakes, you must have a human in the loop to give that final okay.
And for the workflow itself, it's all about one thing: reliability. You need clear exit conditions so conversations don't go on forever. You need single-purpose tools with good error handling. But I want to call out one thing specifically. Use a schema enforcement library like Pydantic. Forcing your agents to output structured, predictable data will save you hundreds of hours in debugging. Trust me on that.
So, let's do a quick recap. We've gone from the absolute basics of agent building blocks all the way through multi-agent patterns, human in the loop, security, the whole shebang. This is the toolkit you need to start building truly intelligent and, more importantly, robust agentic systems.
And that really brings us to the final fundamental question. Our jobs are changing. We're not just tool builders anymore, we're becoming team leaders. So as you fire up your IDE for your next project, take a second and ask yourself, what kind of leader are you going to be? How are you going to design the roles, the rules of engagement, and the culture for your new AI team?